Alright guys, so in this one today we're going to be going through building a basic website with Lovable. So I'm sure a lot of you are really familiar with Lovable, as well as integrating for the moment just a really basic N8N workflow, which we can use and then build upon, which I'll be doing as part of a 3 or 4 part series where we'll take this basic website and build it out, or more so build out some workflows within N8N that can really easily interact with it and integrate with it. So essentially all we'll be doing today and is just going through this basic website. So it's just a landing page and a contact page. I've done this all for free within the free confides of the Lovable plan, and created essentially a website just with a basic landing page, as you can see here, as well as a contact page where potential customers could come to this pretend business that I've just made up. His name's David and he works for Plum Care Solutions, and we want to be able to essentially build this out over the next couple of videos to take it from just a basic landing page to something that can really support a business grow, not just their client base, but also their revenue through that as well. So I will provide in a link in the description to a link to my GitHub, which will have essentially the prompt that I use to build this, because if you get your prompt right, you can get 99% of the way there on essentially the first go, and then just make any small little adjustments that you want, because you might want to change things in terms of, for example, this is exactly how it was generated for me, but you might want to add real testimonials from customers. You might want to add more detail in terms of the services being provided, update some of the information, fix little things like, for example, it says Pro Plum here instead of Plum Care. There's a space there when there shouldn't be. But you can see like it's got more or less 99% of the way there. And this is just on the free plan. So just using the 5 free credits that it has available. So if you were to do this over 2 or 3 days, you could probably get a pretty sharp looking website. But even this one is pretty much 99% of the way there. And it's been completely free for me to do so far. So what I'll do is, as I said, I'll have that prompt completely ready to go so you guys can get an example of the level of detail. What you could do is essentially take it and put it into ChatGPT and say, using this template or using the example below, I want to generate a prompt for a website that is for, say, maybe a marketing company or an automation company, whatever it is that you're building a website for. And the probably the really critical thing that we'll go through in a little bit more detail shortly is just around getting the webhooks right, because that's essentially how, for example, the information on here that our customer fills in is sent to our N8N workflow so that we can then do what we need to do with it. So in terms of the N8N workflow, it's just a really basic one, as I said, but over the next couple of videos that I release, we'll expand this out to include a little bit more information and some bigger use cases. So as I mentioned before, it's going to come in via a webhook. So obviously make sure that you know whether you're using the test or the production URL. I'm going to be using the production one today. You need to make sure your method is set to post. If you want to, you can change this to make it a shorter path. So rather than having this really long string at the end, you could just make it ABC, for example, but I don't want to do that. What's important is to have using respond to webhook node, and obviously making sure that you have a respond to webhook node at the end of this chain of nodes as well. So what I'm going to do is just really quickly, once you've decided on whether you want to use your test or production URL, and again, you can change this down the line, but when this is live and ready to go for your customer or for yourself, you need to make sure it's on the production and obviously that your workflow is active. So if you are changing between the test and production, you do need to make sure that you come back and you get your production URL and you come back to Lovable and you basically just want to put in a message along the lines of please ensure the web hook for the custom form is set to this. And then that way it's just going to make sure that your webhook is set to the correct one, so it's sending the information to the right location. And just as a bit of information for yourself, when you are setting this up, if you're finding that it's not giving you the information in the webhook or returning the information in the structure that you want, just go to ChatGPT and you can say, hey, I've got these fields, so first name, last name, email, etc. I want them to essentially return as JSON structure, with each field being its own element. And so you can work through that and then essentially just put that into Lovable and say, I want the output of the custom form webhook data to be structured like this. And I'll show you essentially how I've done that in just a minute when we go through each of the nodes individually. But what I'm going to do really quickly now that I have this set up and ready to go is I'm just going to put in some dummy data here. So I'm going to go Rick, James. I'm going to just put in one of my dummy email addresses, fake address here. So we'll just do 123 Main Street as well. And then we'll just do Melbourne, Vic, and then we'll go 1234 for the postcode, country, Australia, contact number. Just make that up there. Then the service. So our customer can type in the service that they want here. They need to learn how to spell toilet though. And then select the date that they want to have us come out and perform that service. So when you are setting up your prompt with Lovable, and again, this will be in the prompt that I provide you guys, but what can be really helpful is when you're saying, when you're referencing that you want this custom form page set up, you want to be really specific and say, on the custom form, I want these fields, enter, first name, last name, email. For the preferred date, I want them to be able to select it from a calendar. You might have additional things like, for example, a preferred time, and it might be like a morning, afternoon, evening. So have a drop down with those three options. The more specific you can be, the less likely things are to need to be fixed or updated later on. So now that we have all that information in there, what I'm going to do is just go request a free quote, and we'll ignore that. And then what you can see is it just automatically Lovable just sets up this response, which is fine. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and ask it to wait until it receives a response from our webhook, and you could set up the response from the webhook to be something like text, and you could say, thanks for reaching out. We will get back to you soon. And it would then send that instead. But for this one, I was really happy just with the response that Lovable provided. And so I'm just going to leave the respond to webhook as no data and just allow that message to be the message that the customer receives. So now if we go to our executions, what we should see here is that we should have some data that's come in from our webhook here. So what we can see, we've got a lot of stuff coming in here in terms of the information, but all we really care about is this stuff down here. So that's the information that we're going to be using for the rest of this, workflow or video. Just as a little teaser for a future video down here, what we do also have is a chatbot which essentially utilizes exactly the same functionality as the webhook that we're using for this, but it actually is connected to a RAG agent that will then be able to provide information based on real questions customers may have and real answers that the business can provide. So what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll just copy this information to the editor so that we can use it. And the next thing that we're going to go through is just this code node here. So again, I'll have all this information so you can just copy and paste it, but essentially all this is doing here is it's just extracting the information that we want. So what we'll do is we'll enable this one first, and then we'll execute this step. So now we can see in terms of the output, it's really cleanly put all the information in here for us, so it's ready to go. So then we can start using it. The reason why I've got this wait node here is because if a customer receives a email straight away or a notification straight away that we've received their inquiry, it can come across as a little bit fake and automatic and like a bot, which obviously it is. But if we can do something to try and make it feel a little bit more realistic, you can do that. You don't have to do that. I'd recommend don't do something like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Change it up and just do something a bit random. Just psychologically, it does kind of change people's mindset when they don't just get something on a bang-on time frame. It makes it feel a little bit more real. So that's just why I've put this in here, but that's completely optional if you don't want to use it. So the next thing that we're going to do is essentially take this information that our customers provided us, and we're going to send them an email that basically just outlines that we've received their message or their request, and that we'll get back to them shortly. So all we need to do here is then we've obviously got our Gmail node. So this is where having that structure and that breakdown is really helpful. So with the two, we can just drag across our email here. For the subject, I've just put a Plum Care Solutions Service Inquiry. For the email type, you can have that as text. And then for the message, you can change this if you want. So you could say, something like, Hi Rick. Thank you for reaching out to Plum Care Solutions. We've received your request, which will be the service. And we'll get back to you within the next 24 hours. So what we can see is that obviously we're waiting for the other nodes to execute, or the wait node to execute before this will work. But what we can see is that we've got just a really basic email here. And then what you can do is also BCC yourself in, so that you get a notification that that customer has been essentially has submitted a request or has reached out to you via your website, so that you can get that information. So what I'll do is I'll just activate this one, and I will just deactivate this for the moment, just so, I might even just delete it, just so that we don't have to wait that 30 seconds. And then what we'll do is we'll go execute, and then we can see now that that information's been sent, and we can see in this case, we can see, Hi Rick, thank you for reaching out via Plum Care Solutions. We've received your request, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. And then again, as I mentioned before, we just need to make sure that we do have this respond to webhook node here, or else the webhook will fail, because we have set the response type to using respond to webhook. Cool. So as you can see, we've just got a really basic email that's come through, but it's got all that information. So, Hi Rick, thank you for reaching out to Plum Care Solutions. We've received your request. Toilet seat needs replacing, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. So you can see there that we've just got a really basic workflow there that does something quite helpful. And then what it's also done is CC that information into the account or the address that we put here, which would obviously be our own, so that we can then get that information for our customers. So just a really quick and easy one here today, guys. As I mentioned, I will be building on this, including, as I sort of teased a little bit before, around having a RAG agent chatbot, as well as essentially creating a bit of a customer database, adding things like inquiry numbers, and even further down the line, having essentially automated invoice generation that uses AI to take the customer's request, understand what it is that they're asking for, and then send out a quote to that customer that they can then approve. Just really trying to take away some of the manual labor and a lot of the big issues and the time constraints for clients. So keep an eye out for those ones. They'll be coming out pretty soon. Thanks again. Bye.